You have your word of the week?
Oh, do I have a word of the week? Yes.
Let me make sure mine makes sense.
Oh, you're going to make up a word?
No. I just want to make sure I'm using the correct idiom. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dad's a Dagobah. We have just finished watching episode 5 of Ahsoka, the Master, or the Fallen Master. Is that what it was?
I think it was Shadow Warrior.
Shadow Warrior. Not even close, Joseph. Let's talk about it. But first, we got to get to the word of the week. Sean, do you have your word of the week to describe this episode?
I do have a word of the week, and this word of the week works on many levels.
Oh, all right.
And the word is redemption.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you about a few ways that redemption applies to this TV episode watching experience. One, I feel like this episode is like almost a mini redemption of this show in general after the first 3 episodes, in my opinion. I know that's kind of a unpopular opinion.
Yep.
Most people are like, if you didn't like the first 3 episodes, you're offensive.
You're a fraud.
But so kind of redemption for me of like, this show has revived itself in my own personal fandom opinion of like being a great show with the last 2 episodes. It's a redemption of, it's kind of like almost a closing of a microcosm of the Anakin redemption arc.
Okay, yeah.
And then also I feel like redemption for Ahsoka to like let go of the emotional baggage of her past and like come into who she is as a character, as a Jedi, as
Ahsoka the White.
Yeah, Ahsoka the White, kind of like a little mini redemption for her as well. So I just felt like redemption was what I was thinking for this episode.
That works 2 different ways. My word of the week is eating crow, because that's how I feel after watching this episode. Total 180 and how I feel about this season, how I feel about Ahsoka, how I feel about the future of Star Wars live action shows. Those first 3 episodes were rough, but I think the payback has finally come full circle. And I think a lot of the reasons why those first 3 episodes were rough have now kind of been explained. Right? Where we were talking about how Ahsoka's so straight, she's so deadpan, she has no emotion. Does she even care about Sabine? What's her driving force? Like, literally all of those things we've been talking about for 4 weeks, we now understand, and they've been, I think, resolved, right? Just those last 10 minutes, she's a totally new character. She's been, I mean, for lack of a better term, resurrected or redeemed or whatever it is, right? Revived into a totally new person.
Which, you know, I wonder if that partly is a product, because obviously I was the same way. We were very critical of the first 3 episodes and had a lot of questions, and we were accusatory in the sense of like, man, the writing is bad. They're not, giving us any reason to care about Ahsoka or what her motivations are. And I think that some of that still when I think back on those first 3 episodes, there's probably still like, it could have been given us a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But you're completely right. The last 2 episodes have been so phenomenal and have really put to rest a lot of those critiques and criticisms we had in the first 3, which was basically Ahsoka's character development. We've gotten tons of Ahsoka character development in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And you're right. I think that the payoff of the last 2 episodes would not have been as satisfying if the first 3 episodes didn't show us such a muted as my wife said in the first episode, dull version of Ahsoka.
Totally, yeah. Now, I wonder if they could have shown more of why she was like that in those first couple episodes. But I mean, we get the payoff here, so
yeah,
I'm super excited to talk about this episode with you. So let's get into it. I mean, we don't start with going straight to the world between worlds. Instead, we start with the Ghost and the X-Wings looking for Sabine and Ahsoka, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole idea was I guess they're looking for him, and then they find Hu Yang, and he's talking about how they split up. I always tell them never split up, but they did, and look what happened, right?
You know, I like this kind of trope that happens in TV or movies or whatever, when I am reminded that the characters on screen don't know everything that we know because we've seen things in the previous episode of like, we know where Ahsoka is, we know where Sabine is, but Hu Yang and Hera and Carson, all of them, they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gives like it's just a nice detail in there to give it a little bit of a layer of realism that that's a mystery that they need to solve. Like, what happened to Ahsoka, and where is Ahsoka, where is Sabine? But
Yeah,
it wasn't too long after that we do cut to Anakin and Ahsoka in the world between worlds.
Now, all of the theories that we had of who Anakin was seemingly are all wrong, right? Doesn't seem like it's an episode 2.5, 3 Anakin who somehow gotten there and is saying hi. It's not some spirit of the Force impersonating Anakin.
It's not the god of Mortis, the sun.
Yeah. In fact, it seems like, and I tried watching it just to understand it seems like it's just like her recollection of him, right? It's like her memory of him.
Okay, this is the thing that I most wanted to talk with you about. Because to me, I'm like, what is he?
I think it's her memory.
I think it's going to be I want to like hear Dave Filoni tell us what he was thinking about this. Because I have now seen a couple of theories still that I'm like, that would be interesting. That would be cool. I like that as like my own headcanon, but I don't know if that's what Dave Filoni was thinking. One of the ones that I kind of like, and I initially thought when I was watching, I'm like, is this actually Anakin? Not Anakin episode 2-3, but like Force Ghost Anakin. Like, is this him? Is this afterlife Anakin? But in the world between worlds, you don't look like a Force Ghost. But it's actually him.
Huh. Okay.
Because obviously there's a huge sequence here of him with Ahsoka and fighting her, and sometimes with blue lightsaber, sometimes with red, sometimes with his regular eyes, sometimes with Sith eyes. But I didn't get the feeling, and we can talk about this, but I didn't get the feeling that when he was with the red lightsaber or the Sith eyes that he actually was evil. It was like playing a purpose in the training he was trying to give to her. Because he like almost gives her a test at the end where she steals the red lightsaber, her eyes turn Sith, but she follows Luke's example and like throws away the lightsaber, and then he goes back to normal Anakin. So I'm like, is he in control of himself? And he's just putting that dark side illusion on to like test her and give her a final lesson, and it's actually him. Because okay, so I'm jumping chronologically, but one of the things that I realized or noticed about this is last episode is when he said or was it this episode? It was this episode. Like, hey Snips, I didn't expect to see you so soon.
That was last episode.
The last episode. Which people I've seen the theory that I feel like is all leading towards the headcanon that I like, which is it's almost like it was is this the version of if she was going to die, he's going to like lead her to the afterlife or lead her to like becoming one with the Force and becoming a Force ghost herself. And he's like there to as her master to like teach her how to do that. And so he kind of quizzes her on like, how much do you remember? And she says, I do remember I was fighting Balin. And that's when he's like, okay, then you could still live from this. But if you had lost that memory, then I would be here to transition you to like death, basically. And so it opens up this idea of, is it actually him? Like it's his Force ghost. It's his one with the Force being.
This is post Return of the Jedi, dead Force Ghost Anakin.
Yes, and he has knowledge of his life. Because when she says, I will not fight you, he says, I've heard that before. And he's talking about Luke. When Luke fights Vader in Return of the Jedi. Because Luke says the same exact thing to him.
Doesn't Ahsoka say that to him, though, in
Rebels?
Malachor?
Does she say that?
I don't know. I mean, if what that line right there may be the nail in the coffin, you know, that may be the kicker. Because you're right, he does say, I've heard that before.
I've heard that before, yeah. And then, so let's go through this chronologically. So he's talking.
Huh?
What'd you say?
When do I get to share my idea?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so what do you think he is? You think it's just her memory?
That's what I thought they were going for. But as I've thought about it more, it seems like it's more like the cave on Dagobah, the cave on Ahch-To where Rey goes. It's this. The Force brought Ahsoka to a place where she needs to confront her fear. Luke's fear is that he will turn into his father, right? Rey's fear is that she doesn't have parents who are significant. Don't even get me started on that. And then Ahsoka's fear is that all of this, her failed master, who she feels, credit for, or all of the dead clones from her years fighting the war, and all of her failed student of Sabine. I think that is kind of like the Force bringing her and giving her this chance to put to rest all of those fears.
Yeah, but I think that I think that you're right. And I think there's another layer of this too, in that Anakin, through the flashbacks and everything, the development and everything is that she has not accepted the legacy of, she feels like the legacy of her training was he just trained her to be a soldier and a weapon. And Jedi are supposed to be peacekeepers. But
she never had the chance to be a peacekeeper.
Right.
Yeah.
But he also is trying to explain to her, which I think he's right. I don't think that this is supposed to be like he's evil or he's manipulating her. I took this scene as he does want to help her. That's how I took the scene, even when he's Darkseid and Darth Vader. But
it's like, I don't know.
But he says he's training her to survive. Like, he's like, if you don't, you have to adjust with the times. We're not peacekeepers anymore. And if you don't train to be a soldier, you will die. And that's true, because she survived Order 66 because of his training.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And when Rex and all those clones turn on her, like, she went through like that super intense training in Clone Wars with Anakin, where it was like, why is he so hard on her? Why is he making her do all these crazy intense drills as a Padawan? And it's like, because she needed to survive Order 66. So I didn't take the scene as like Anakin is a fallen, flawed master and didn't train her right. I took it as he knew what he needed to do to train her to survive. And but But obviously he did fall to the dark side, and the scenes of like his silhouette turning into Vader were so cool.
And his voice, they changed his voice on one part where it kind of had the Darth Vader twinge to it.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like the flashback happens. She's obviously,
Maybe it was Force Ghost Anakin. I like that idea. And he's just helping her through this cave of hers that she has to go through.
because there's even a point, we'll get to this. I want to do the first flashback scene first, which is she's a young Padawan. It's her very first,
right?
Yeah, Ryloth, her very first mission. And that's where he's given she's really affected by the loss of the clones, and he's talking about, we're not peacekeepers. Obi-Wan trained me to be a peacekeeper, but like this war, we have to be soldiers. I'm training you to survive. Like, you got to do this or you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the lesson from that, of like, what is the legacy of his training? And I think there's some duality here of her failed training of Sabine was that she tried to, Sabine is a soldier. Like, that's all Sabine knows. So Ahsoka feels like that's all I'm passing on. Is like, I'm not passing on the true legacy of the Jedi. I'm just passing on the legacy of my master, who just trained me to be a soldier and who ultimately fell to the dark side and didn't keep to the Jedi code, type of thing.
Right.
So she has to deal with that. But then, it's the siege of Mandalore.
Wait. Can we talk?
Go ahead.
Does she age up in the Siege of Mandalore too? Because that is from season 6 of Clone Wars, right? Or season 7, season 6.
And that Siege of Mandalore she's already parted ways with Anakin at that point.
Right. Yes.
She's already left the Jedi Order at that point, or left Anakin, and while she's on Mandalore, he falls to the dark side.
Yes.
He becomes Vader while she's on Mandalore. So I don't know if Ahsoka aged up in terms of visual during scenes, but Anakin does. He's in a different costume and different hair in the Mandalore flashback than he was on the Ryloth flashback.
Why was he on Mandalore in that flashback?
Because he's just there to talk to her. He wasn't actually there.
Right. Okay.
So in that flashback, she sees Rex. She sees what my background is, the Maul Mandalorian guys. Because Maul is currently on Mandalore, and that's the whole last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars show is her.
The Night Watch, right?
Yeah. Her fighting Maul and all that kind of stuff. And Maul revealing to her, by the way, in those episodes, that Anakin has been groomed by Sidious to become Sidious's apprentice, and Ahsoka wouldn't believe it, and that's why she fights with Maul. But anyway, I digress. So in this Mandalore flashback now, she sees Rex, she sees the Maul helmets, all that kind of stuff, and Anakin shows up behind her, kind of like, wow, so this is kind of like what you were doing, type of thing. I forget what he actually says.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But he's just there. He's not actually part of the memory, but he's there to like talk her through it.
He's like the ghosts of Christmas past and future.
Yep. And that's when he makes the comment about, she says something about no one knew how like dangerous or whatever you were. And he almost is like annoyed with her, like, is that what this is about? Like, is this all because I fell to the dark side? He's almost like nonchalant about, we're past this. Like, yes, I fell to the dark side, but I came back, and I felt like it was this kind of feeling from Anakin of, that's not who I ended up being.
And that's not the lesson we're going for here.
And that's not part of this lesson. Like, that's not relevant to what I'm trying to teach you right now as your master. But then I think because he's like fighting her, and then does the dark side. You know, he has the red lightsaber now on Mandalore because at that point he had already turned to Vader. And then I think it's still young Ahsoka because then he kicks her and she goes back into the world between worlds and she's older Ahsoka at that point. And has the red lightsaber. He's fighting her as Vader. But again, my whole interpretation of this is he's doing that purposefully as part of the lesson. That she has to like overcome that part of the legacy of her training. That she was like trained by the Jedi who eventually became Darth Vader.
Right.
And she has to choose that she won't follow in that path, but still keep the lessons that she learned from Anakin.
Is it too much to say that Ahsoka now is a Jedi? And here's why I say that. And this might be too small of a line of dialogue that maybe I'm reading too much into. But we know she has, for many shows, talked about how she is not a Jedi. She hasn't trained Jedi. She's not a Jedi, right? I can't remember. Like she's talking to Grogu, maybe, or I can't remember. There's just instances where she makes it very clear she's not a Jedi.
Yeah.
Jason Syndulla, little green-haired kid, is talking to her afterwards after she comes out in her white robe, and she's talking about, have you ever been? And he's like, can I go with you? You ever been in a ship? And then she says, you ever been inside a Jedi starfighter? And she like calls it a Jedi starfighter, and to me, I was like, is she Jedi now? I think maybe. I mean, ultimately, what does that mean? I don't know. But maybe, this redemption of hers, she's come back in her own headspace that she's a Jedi now. She left the Jedi Order for reasons because of, the whole season of Clone Wars basically talked about why she left. And I think she stayed out because she saw what the Jedi became and what one of the Jedi did, But the lesson ultimately where she chose life and not death is the Jedi way.
Yeah,
into that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying because I do feel like there's been a lot of media proclaiming that she's not.
But even like in the trailer, they say like warrior, teacher, Jedi, and I'm like, but she's not a Jedi, And I wonder if I don't know, maybe I. But also, she seems happier, and she seems more at one with the Force, and she seems more, she's talking to the Purrgil. She's got a smile on her face. She's, I don't know, seems more Jedi now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that she probably identifies as a Jedi at this point.
Yeah.
And a little bit I was feeling like, is she gonna like start training Jason? But I feel like she has to, part of this whole redemption arc for her has to be Sabine. Like successfully training Sabine.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, totally.
But anyway, I mean,
that lightsaber.
The last thing I'll say about the Anakin stuff is obviously, so she is able to steal his lightsaber. The reflection in her eyes makes it look like she has the Sith yellow eyes, but she rejects that of like, I'm not going to give into this. I'm not going to follow that path. Very similar to Luke, obviously.
Tosses the lightsaber aside. Yep.
And then Anakin, closes his eyes, and when he opens them back up, he doesn't have the Sith eyes anymore, and he's back to normal Anakin. And basically, validates that she has passed the test.
Yeah, it seemed like a bit of a Lady Galadriel moment where she had this test in front of her and she passed, and
Yeah. But anyway, so back to this.
Did you notice any of the fighting stances and some of the different callbacks to how he was fighting?
Well, like I mean, he did his infamous twirl that you hate so much. That's just signature Anakin.
And also, he did stab moves like Palpatine's bread and butter is the stab. And then the disarmament, or because she loses her lightsabers, and though she goes into defensive mode, and she disarms him the same way he disarms Dooku. Anyway, little things that I felt.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, those are all awesome call outs. And but I mean, the idea of the one thing that I did see on TikTok or Twitter, I don't remember, about this theory about him being, that's actually him, like his Force Ghost afterlife presence, and this idea of the master comes back to guide the Padawan once they die to like become one with the Force and a Force Ghost. And then you extrapolate that to, that must have meant that Obi-Wan was there to greet Anakin when Anakin was redeemed by Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi. And then I didn't see this on TikTok, but I extrapolated that to, now that we've opened this door, we're in prime position now to get what we should have gotten in The Rise of Skywalker and see a closing of the character arc for the Luke and Ben Solo relationship.
No. Well, here we go again. Yeah, that would have been nice.
Because
There's
Last
so many things that
Jedi,
would have been nice about the end of that movie, but
Last Jedi, this is a, I know that you don't trust me when I start talking about Last Jedi. This is a compliment. Last Jedi deliciously set up at the end of Last Jedi, Luke saying to Kylo, "See you around, kid." Which I was like, Luke and Kylo have to reconcile. That to me was a very important part of that Skywalker family closure that never happened in Rise of Skywalker. I'm like, Force Ghost Luke needed to interact and visit with Ben Solo and help him in some way. Now, what I will say is
Yoda visited Luke, you know?
And obviously the scene with Han, and we're way off of Ahsoka now, but the scene with Han and Kylo Ren is one of my top 5 Star Wars moments of all time.
It's your top number one. Just say it. It's your number one favorite. You cry every time.
I unabashedly love that scene. I think it's fantastic. I get teary-eyed every time I see it.
Yeah, we know.
A father's love. And anyway, so I obviously that's super meaningful, and I wouldn't want to take that away. But I also felt a little bit like it's just kind of sad that the end of the Skywalker family story is that there were still these kind of unresolved animosities and relationships.
That we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of masters, right?
So, but we are what they grow beyond in the sense of what the lore will allow us to do. And now that we've grown beyond linear timelines, the world between worlds can now give us the moments that we should have had.
I loved what they did with that place. We were, I mean, rightfully so, kind of worried that they could really mess things up with this world between worlds, right? And really confuse people who weren't familiar with it from Rebels, and really open up this whole multiverse. And what they did with it was so perfect in every sense of the word. They used it perfectly. Would you agree they kind of used it like the cave on? I mean, it's kind of this place where you go learn lessons, right? And Ezra did the same thing when and I think someone else I saw on TikTok that like the world between worlds is different for each person. For Ezra, it was a pathway to go. For his test was, I can save Ahsoka. Can I also save Kanan? Well, no, I'm not supposed to, you know. And that was his test, and he was tempted by Sidious. Ahsoka's is something totally different. Hers is learning this lesson from her master about being a soldier and, you know, being okay with what happened.
Yeah.
And letting go of baggage.
Yeah. So all of the world between world stuff, I completely agree. Really well done. I really liked what they did with it. I thought that the way they incorporated Anakin into the story and into these flashbacks was awesome.
We are so spoiled with Hayden.
And let me just say, I forgot to say, redemption could also apply to our main man Hayden Christensen, the redemption arc of his involvement in Star Wars in general.
Are we going to get more of him? I just want more of Hayden.
Let's just let this sink in. Because tell me if this is a true statement or not. The best episodes and scenes from the Obi-Wan show are the scenes and episodes that Hayden is prominently featured.
Even when we see him for half a second off on a hillside.
And the best scenes and episodes from Ahsoka are the episodes where he is prominently featured.
Oh, totally.
Isn't that interesting? That he is carrying this Disney Plus Star Wars live action slate.
In Book of Boba Fett Season 2, they should bring in Hayden Christensen. Have a little spin-off episode, Where Grogu goes to the world between the worlds, and I don't know.
I mean, he obviously, yeah, I feel like he's been doing great as Anakin. It's great to see him back. It's not, it makes sense in the stories.
Oh, totally.
It's not just like the Vader Rogue One scene is awesome. Everybody loves it. But for all intents and purposes, it's a cameo. It's just a cameo, which is fine. I like cameos. I like fan service, and I think the scene is awesome. What he's doing in Obi-Wan and Ahsoka is way more than a cameo. It actually is like serving the narrative and is like part of the character development.
Well, I mean, it develops him as Vader in Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan,
Yeah. I also like the theory that it is actually him and his consciousness, because then it gives more weight to it's giving us even more closure and continuing his arc as a character of like after Return of the Jedi, this is now the new canon of where he is as a character post redemption in Return of the Jedi.
Post special edition 1999.
Yes, because he still wants to help Ahsoka. He's training Ahsoka. He's invested still in the people that he cares about.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
So now we just need to see Force Ghost Anakin meet up with Luke. We need to get a little interaction there.
Listen, we had Force Ghost Qui-Gon. That was incredible.
Okay, so other things in this episode, though, we get Carson telling Hera that Senator Organa, little Leia shout out, is covering for us.
I wish she would have at least had a little something. But I mean, I know this isn't a Leia show, but would have been cool. I thought she was going to be on the ships. I thought it would be like, oh, sweet. And like the Purgle would grab the ships and take them with them, That's what I thought was going to happen.
Even like Mon Mothma, even if you just did like a hologram, that must be easy to CGI a Leia hologram.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that we've gotten what we've gotten so far, I'm not sure that we're going to get Luke in this show. Like we were talking about a few weeks ago, that Luke's got to be in this show. I don't know that he's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't see why he would.
He's going to have to be in the movie. He's going to have to show his ugly face sometime, right?
I guess so. But obviously, Jason Syndulla is
Force sensitive,
and hearing the lightsabers, I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's this kind of interdimension.
But also that his mom could tap into it when needed.
Yeah. So is she Force sensitive? Or is that just like a mother's intuition?
I think it's just showing everyone has the ability to feel the Force or be. Everyone has the Force in them. It's just the Jedi are more attuned to it.
Like Chirrut Imwe.
Yes.
Guardian of the Wills.
Yep.
I
don't know that I have a lot to talk about with the other characters. I mean, it just, yeah. But then we get I don't know if you've seen other people talk about this, but this is definitely the Gandalf story. Falls off a cliff, is close to death, experiences, redemption or resurrection or whatever you call it, comes back in a white robe totally changed person.
Yeah.
And that's what Ahsoka is. She seems happier. She seems more in connection with the Force. She seems like she's anxious to go do something now. It seemed before she was kind of just being like, we need to stop Thrawn. Like, just like so serious. And that now that she's with the Purrgil and she, just better character, I feel like.
Yeah. Yep. Total like shift in kind of just her body language and the energy she's putting out and positive. And even, Hu Yang saying, how do we know that this is going to take us where Ezra and them are? And she's like, we don't. Like, we're just going to see where it goes.
Better than standing still.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like this episode was fantastic and like a great now starting point of now I'm looking forward. Like, I actually want to see what happens now. I'm like excited to see it.
So yeah, I mean, what's next? Are we getting there next episode? Do we have to do little breakpoints?
There's 8 episodes.
We've got 3 more.
And so we know Thrawn has to be in it.
Uh-huh.
But we also know, I think it was confirmed on Twitter that they've confirmed a season 2.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, I thought that was announced.
It makes sense. It makes sense that there would be.
Because I don't think that in the next 3 episodes we're going to find Thrawn and Ezra and Sabine and defeat Morgan Elsbeth and defeat Thrawn and rescue Sabine and Ezra and make it back to the galaxy.
Well, I figured the defeat of Thrawn would be in the movie. I would think the cliffhanger is he gets to the galaxy at the end of this season.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, anyway.
So if he gets to the galaxy at the end of this season, then now Mando, Ahsoka, they're all living in a galaxy that Thrawn is back and the Imperial Remnant is reorganizing.
Don't forget about Boba Fett. He's still there.
And Boba Fett, yeah. But Boba Fett's too busy being the daimyo of Tatooine.
Daimyo. Anyway, are we going to do a Bacta tank joke? Get me to the Bacta!
Yo, Boba Fett, while you're in the Bacta, contemplate this. Why do you want to be the daimyo of Tatooine?
That's right. What are you getting out of this? You seem to have a lot more fun as a bounty hunter on your own.
Because you did a few contracts for Jabba the Hutt, now you feel like Tatooine's like your home? Makes no sense. Go be the daimyo of Kamino.
Yeah, there you go. I don't have anything else about this episode. I thought it was fantastic. 10 out of 10. Would watch again. Let us know what you guys thought down below. Who Anakin is. Do you think I kind of am on Sean's side? This may be a Force Ghost post Return of the Jedi. But I guess we're I don't know if Dave Filoni will come out and say anything, but maybe he will eventually. Hopefully.
Yeah. I think it's fun to speculate right now, but I'd like to know a little bit more kind of what his thought process was for.
Yeah.
Because if he comes out and says, no, that's just in Ahsoka's mind, that was just her memory. I'm like, that's fine too. But that means something a little different than.
Yeah. And how has he heard that before? Was Ahsoka there on the Death Star? Or I guess it was Endor where he said, I won't fight you, Father?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, yeah, let us know in the comments what you thought of the episode and where where this show is at in terms of your rankings of the Disney Plus live action Star Wars shows.
Mm.
And we're excited to keep watching for the next few weeks. And until next time, Joseph, we have spoken.
This is the way.
And we'll see you next time on The Dads of
Dagobah.
Dagobah.
See you guys.
Bye.